What if the best way to learn a new language was to, well, to just throw out the rule book entirely and the dictionary too? Today, we're diving into a method that's pretty revolutionary because it does exactly that.
All right, so I want you to picture this. You're in a classroom in Italy. The lesson is in English, but something feels a little off. The teacher isn't speaking a single word of Italian at all. So you're probably thinking, wait, how are these students learning anything?
So let's peek inside that classroom, right? Let's see what this experience is actually like. The teacher points to a map and asks the question. A student answers. The crazy part? It's all happening in English. There's no translation. No, how do you say this in Italian? Nope. Every single thing is happening in the language they're trying to learn. They are literally learning by doing right from day one.
Okay, so what is this? It seems kind of like magic, right? Well, this technique actually has a name. And believe it or not, it's been shaping how we teach languages for more than 100 years.
It's called the direct method. And really, the name tells you everything you need to know. The whole idea is to connect meaning directly to the new language. You don't translate it in your head. So when you see a chair, you immediately think chair. You don't go through that extra step of thinking your native word first and then translating it.
And this wasn't just some random new idea. It was a total game changer. See, back in the late 1800s, the main way to learn a language was something called the grammar translation method. It was all about memorizing grammar rules and translating text back and forth. So when Maximilian Berlitz came along with the direct method, it was a complete rebellion. And what's wild is that its basic ideas are still super influential today. And the philosophy behind it is actually really simple. It's that knowing a language isn't just about passing a test. It's about being able to speak it, to actually talk to people.
So how does this whole thing work? What's the secret sauce? Let's break down the key principles we just saw in action back in that classroom.
Okay, rule number 1, and this is the big one. Never translate, demonstrate. Instead of saying the word for map in Italian, the teacher just points to the map. You use actions, you use pictures, you use real objects. That's how you build that direct link in your brain. And this next one is so cool. You don't give them the grammar rules. Instead, you make them figure out the rules. So the teacher just gives them tons and tons of examples. The students hear them, they use them, and eventually their brains just kind of figure out the pattern. It's this thing called inductive learning, and it's basically how you learned your first language as a kid without ever opening a grammar book. And forget about those long, boring vocabulary lists. This method is all about production, not just memorization. The point is to actually use the words you're learning in real sentences right away. You learn the vocabulary naturally because you need it to talk about what's happening around you. Which brings us to the main principle of the whole thing. Communication comes first. The entire point is to be able to have a conversation, and that means you don't just learn how to answer questions, you learn how to ask them too. It turns you from a passive learner into an active speaker. So, to really get why this was such a big deal, let's compare it directly to that old school method it was rebelling against. And right here, you can see the huge difference in philosophy. The old way, grammar translation, is all about reading, writing, and dissecting grammar. It's almost like treating language like a science experiment. But the direct method, it's all about speaking, listening, and treating language like what it is, a tool for real human communication. Let's look at grammar. In the direct method, you discover the rules as you go, kind of naturally. But with grammar translation, it's the complete opposite. You start with the rules. Day 1 is memorizing a bunch of grammar formulas. And this completely changes the teacher's job. With the direct method, the teacher is like a coach. They're super active, always asking questions, getting you involved. In the old method, the teacher's more like, well, a walking dictionary, just there to give you the answers. And of course, that changes your role as the student too. In a direct method class, you have to be active. You're always talking. But in a grammar translation class, you're way more passive, just focusing on getting the translation exactly right. It really is the difference between actually playing the game versus just sitting on the sidelines reading the rulebook. Okay, so we've seen how it works. We've seen where it came from. What's the big takeaway here? What's the main point? I think it's this. The goal of learning a language isn't just to have knowledge about it. It's about communication. It's not just about knowing the words. It's about being able to use them. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What if you were learning a new language right now and you weren't allowed to use a dictionary or a translation app at all? How would that change how you learn? Would it force you to think differently, to listen a little closer, and maybe, just maybe, to connect with that language in a much more, well, direct way?